Now, an alert has been issued to all UK children over a sextortion epidemic, is what they're calling it, as police warn that foreign gangs, mostly from West Africa and Southeast Asia, are targeting kids in this country for blackmail.
This comes amid calls to ban mobile phones for children and stop young teens from using social media. We asked pupils aged under 15 to see what they thought.
So many people get hurt online. If we didn't have phones, chances are stuff like that would decrease.
People's mental health could also be affected by different factors like school and how much stress is built up from like exams coming up.
Phones have like prevented other people to socialise with each other, so it's kind of caused like anxiety for some people.
Not every person has mental health issues because of their phones. People like to go on their phones because they like to talk to their friends.
Very interesting. Well, the extremely well-respected and eminent American author and psychologist Jonathan Haidt blames a decline in teenagers' mental health on the rise in smartphone use. He's written this extraordinary book about it, The Anxious Generation, which is fascinating. We'll talk to you in a second.
And journalist Harry Wallop recently decided to go on a week-long smartphone ban with his family and says it's crazy for under-16s to be banned from using the devices. Harry joins us alongside his 16-year-old daughter, Celia. Very good morning to all of you. Celia, when Dad said there's a smartphone ban for a week, how did you cope?
I was appalled.
Right.
I was not very happy about it. Definitely kicked up a bit of a fuss, but all in all, it was quite a good idea.
Yeah, so you found it appalling because, of course, we all are kind of addicted to our phones. What was the good stuff that came out of it?
Well, when the phone arrived, it had the snake game, which was pretty great.
Oh, you're talking about you got given a brick phone or an old-style flip phone. Yeah, OK.
And it was quite good to have, time away from my phone and enjoy other hobbies that I have. But I felt quite isolated and lonely from my friends, and, I was missing out on things.
How long did it take you to adapt?
2 days.
That's all?
Yeah, because when I was back at school, I didn't find it too bad because I was surrounded by my friends. But the first day on the weekend was really hard.
Do you find that, because you say that actually the phone keeps you connected, there is an ability to feel like you're part of your friend community with your phone. But are there times when your phone makes you feel anxious or under threat or at risk or intimidated?
I never really find that. And I see how people could, definitely on social media, but I think social media can definitely be a good thing. OK, well, let's turn to you, Jonathan. On the cover of the book, there's a subtitle, How the Great Rewiring of Childhood, is how you put it, is causing an epidemic of mental illness. It's really that bad, is it? An epidemic?
Oh, yes. When you look at mental health statistics from all over the world, what you see is that the rates of anxiety, depression, self-harm were pretty stable in the late 1990s and early 2000s. And all of a sudden, right around 2012, it's like somebody flipped a switch and girls all over the developed world began cutting themselves, harming themselves, girls especially. Boys are getting worse too, but boys, it wasn't as sudden. Boys, the story is different. But for girls, it's very clear there's a link to when, in 2010, girls didn't have smartphones, they had flip phones, they didn't have Instagram, they didn't have front-facing cameras. By 2015, everyone has all of that. And as Celia said, to talk to your friends, you need to be on the phone.
So that's the link. Make the connection for us. Why would having smartphones make girls harm themselves?
Because, first of all, a phone is an experience blocker. If you put a smartphone into your child's life, this thing is designed, and the apps on it, they're designed to grab your child's attention and never let go. So once you give that phone, that's going to be a lot of their life. Now, when they do this, they don't have hobbies, and as Celia said, she actually took up bracelet making again. They don't have hobbies, they don't read books, they don't see their friends. Time with friends in the United States and Britain has plummeted because they're doing this instead.
And also,
that is not a substitute.
They're looking at stuff, aren't they, on the positive, you'd say positive side, lots of positive images, but then comparing themselves to those and despairing about what they might wrongly see as their own inadequacies. And also they're seeing terrible stuff. We see the story this morning about the fact a national crime agency warning has gone out to primary schools and other schools to say be worried and spot the signs of sextortion. Now that comes about, presumably, with a rise in mobile phones.
Absolutely. None of us would send our kids to camp out in a terrible, dangerous neighborhood and spend 10 years there. That would be insane. But yet we give them these devices and these platforms that are designed to let strangers talk to our children.
And
Yes.
what
And of course
about
they do.
the violence which is on show? I mean, I, as a 67-year-old man, have never watched a video of a beheading.
That's right.
But up to half of children under 15 in this country have. What's that doing to them?
Well, that's right. When we were growing up, there was an issue of violence on TV, but it was film violence or cartoon violence. And that's, you know, people live in stories, stories have violence. It's entirely different when you see an arm being chopped off, a head being chopped off. These are horrific,
For real,
horrific
for
things.
real,
For real.
these- yeah.
For real. And these are available, many kids see them. So again, we care what our children take in, and especially in puberty. This is a point I really want to emphasize. The most sensitive period for brain development is actually puberty. That's when the brain is rewiring from its childhood form to its adult form. There's research from Britain actually showing that 11 to 13 is the age when the links to social media and harm are the strongest. Early puberty is exactly when we should not be having our kids exposed to random weirdos on the internet.
So don't
Yet we
give
do.
those children smartphones. Don't allow them access to all of this content online. Harry, you were so worried about it. You had this family experiment. But what do you think now? Would you like smartphones to be stopped for children?
I just think that's a very blunt tool. I mean, Jonathan's research is very important, and there's definitely this sort of correlation between mental health and smartphones. I'm not convinced there's a causation between the two. And, you know, they are incredibly useful devices. And there are positives. You know, Celia does spend too much time on TikTok. I spend far too much time on Twitter. But she's mostly looking at, like, cooking videos and makeup tutorials. There's not... You know, it can be positive stuff as well. And, of course, now it's very difficult, especially as an adult and as a teenager, getting around a city to live without a smartphone, because it's like train tickets, tube tickets, maps, everything now. It's a mini computer in your pocket.
Do you have rules?
Well, we have the basic rules, no phones at the table. And obviously, I think this all started with a row where, you know, no phones at the table. It's like, well, you've got your phone at the table. So that's how it all started, you know.
Yeah.
But even that, you know, it's like, oh, we need to look up a fact. It's like, do we really need to?
Yeah.
You know, can we not just wait 10 minutes?
Our mantra is there's always a reason. So there is never a reason. You know, put your phones away. Do not have phones at the table. And Jonathan, what would your... I know you would like to see phone-free kids, but are there useful rules that parents can adopt that work, do you think?
Yes. Well, so the first thing is, Celia and I were talking in the green room. She did an experiment, her family did an experiment where she was taken off of her phone, separated from her friends, and all she had to talk to were her parents or other siblings. So how would it have been if it was all the kids who did the experiment? This is the most powerful thing we can do, is, and my message to parents is, don't think about, like, I'm going to take my kid off because that's the right thing to do. You're then exposing your kid to being ostracized. What we really need to push for is phone-free schools and to have all the kids have the same policy. If all the kids had the same policy and they all had the brick phones, the flip phones, what would you do? You'd meet up in person.
Yeah,
You'd
well, a
pray the way
report
your
out
parents
today...
and grandparents did.
Can I ask you your...
Sorry, Richard,
yes,
can I just make... Head teachers... A report says today, should make sure pupils hand in or lock up their phones at the start of each day, because an effective ban has a positive impact on a school's performance.
Absolutely.
You endorse that completely?
Absolutely. My children go to New York City public schools where the rule is you can't use your phone during class, which means you have to hide it in a book, you have to go to the bathroom in order to use it during class. If kids can text during class, they will be texting during class. The only effective ban...
Take them away.
They have to be locked in a phone locker or a lockable pouch.
Harry just mentioned his addiction to Twitter, now X, of course. I went back onto Twitter, X, for the first time in 5 years yesterday.
Don't go there, Richard.
Well, I did. The reason I left was because it had become so toxic. When it started, I wouldn't have minded my kids being on Twitter because it was fun. It was a warm, it was a friendly, gossipy, totally unthreatening site. Now it's a nest of vipers. What has happened to us as a global community that we've become so incredibly toxic to each other only online? You don't get it when you go to the shops face to face. It's just on this damn thing. What's happened to us?
We evolved as a species to have really good social skills, the ability to negotiate, read people's faces, work out problems. That's what we have built in. We then go on these platforms, and all of the platforms start out nice. TikTok was dance videos.
Good fun.
Everything starts out nice. But the nature of life on this planet is if there's a system, parasites and exploiters will get in. So if there's a system, if we're going to take our children and say, how about you don't see each other in the real world anymore? How about you all you all interact on these platforms. And at first it might seem, well, okay, that's interesting. But within a year or two, there's going to be sextortionists, there's going to be beheading videos.
Yeah.
This is the nature of decay of all
And there's
social
so
systems.
few consequences, aren't there, Harry?
But, you know, I think it's worth remembering they are useful, even for parents, you know, keeping track of your kids. As a parent, you sometimes feel safer when you know your child is at the other end of a telephone, and indeed a smartphone where you can message...
And we talk about banning them in schools. I would also suggest you ban them in the bedroom. That when children go to bed, they leave their phones downstairs in the kitchen.
Yeah. Good luck with that when they're
Well,
over 16. Thank you all very much indeed.
Thank you.